Here now is Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells with Talk to Tom.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells, and this is Talk to Tom. I can't thank you enough for being here. The show is a big dream come true for me. If you've never seen it before, it's kind of a riff that we do back and forth, me talking to you, you talking to me. Started out in 2004 as just a way to let the viewers ask questions during Hurricane Charlie of all times. People were calling in with questions that people on the desk and producers could not answer, and they're like, hey, would you just talk to them? So we started taking your calls live on the air. It led to becoming something we do every hurricane, and then it became something I did on Facebook and let you ask questions there. And now we let you submit your questions. Sometimes we'll record the questions, sometimes we'll talk to you live. So if you want to submit a question, just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom and submit your question. Today, we're going to have a pretty good show. We're going to tell you how hurricane victims may very well be missing out on benefits, big ones, something like to the tune of $45,000, and not even know about it. But first, as I do every Thursday, I want to start by answering your questions. To submit a question, again, go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. Our first question today comes to us from our friend Ed Lawrence. Why do you suppose hurricanes Nicole and Ian, for instance, always seem to arrive at night, on a full moon, and at high tide? Coincidence or not? Okay, well, it's coincidental, and it's also perception. For a lot of people, that perception becomes reality. And a lot of people remember, wow, seems like a lot of my hurricane memories are that they arrive at night. And really, that's not always true. You have to remember the approaching hurricane takes a long time. The impacts get here early, and so some of the impacts are going to last longer than 12 hours or 24 hours or even 36. And that would mean at some point we'll be dealing with high tide, we'll be dealing with nightfall, we'll be dealing with all the things you're talking about over the course of several days. For example, if you go back to 2004 with Hurricane Charlie ripped through here at night, but it actually made landfall in the afternoon. In the afternoon over on the Gulf Coast. It did. People don't remember that because by the time it got to us, it was the dead of the night, about 9, 10, 11 o'clock as it slammed through here. But when it made landfall, it was daytime. Same thing with Hurricane Ian. Hurricane Ian came through a lot of us at night, but it made landfall, or really was beating the daylights out of the folks over on the Gulf Coast through a large part of the day. Some of the daytime hours, you could still see the roof trying to come off the house where my friends were hanging over on the Gulf Coast. So it's kind of coincidental that you get the impacts at night where you live, and kind of a big perception thing too, as to whether or not you remember it being daytime or nighttime. Okay, next question up comes to us from our friend Rachel Christian. Why does it rain almost every day during the summer in Central Florida, and why are the winters normally so dry? Okay. We've talked about this before on television, where we have what we call the wet season, the rainy season, and the dry season. And what happens is sometime, by the time we're all together in late May, we get enough humidity in the air. And it's normally when the overnight lows. I call this the karst theory, named for my buddy Roy Karst, who was an old citrus farmer of note here in Central Florida. I talked to him at great length when he was still alive about farming, about Windermere, about the lakes, about orange groves, and weather. He was very, very interested in weather. And he told me that every time the rainy season's getting ready to start, they could figure out when they needed to water before there were television meteorologists around to help them. They could figure out when the rain was going to start when the overnight lows started staying above 70 to 72 at night. And what was going on, I told him, was that the fact we were staying with temperatures that didn't drop into the 60s here in late May was because there's more humidity in the air. And he went, that's right. And so what happens is we end up with a lot of humidity in the air here in Central Florida through a large stretch of time, normally between end of May and mid-October. Our atmosphere gets super saturated. And so during the day, when the earth heats up, the sea breezes begin. When the sea breezes collide, it lifts that moisture up. And boom, we get thunderstorms every day somewhere in Central Florida if the air mass is moist enough. We're very air mass driven here in Central Florida. Either we have a moist air mass or it's too dry to rain. And that's what happens between May and October is we're moist. And then we get the colliding sea breezes, and that produces your rain every day somewhere. Some days the East Coast sea breeze gets pinned on the East Coast, and the showers are more east of Orlando. Sometimes it's right over Orlando, and sometimes it's west toward the West Coast, depending on the location of the high, driving the sea breeze. So there you go. That's why it rains just about every day during the summer. And why the winters are dry is because the cold fronts start coming. We get a different air mass on top of us. Here in Florida, we're what we call a subtropical climate. We're tropical for about 6 months out of the year, and then we're not tropical. So that's actually what you would call a subtropical climate. Great question. I can never answer it enough. All right, let's get to Tommy Bell. Tommy Bell wants to know, what is the difference between humidity and dew point? Okay, humidity is the amount of moisture in the air, and dew point is the temperature where dew forms. So the humidity is in the air, almost always some. There's always some moisture in the air. Even the most arid climates have a little bit of moisture in the air. Here in Florida, we have a lot most of the time. If we get relative humidity down in the 20 percentiles, it's really dry and our hands start to feel, brittle and dry, chalky. But most of the time, the air here is very humid because of our proximity to oceans on both sides and lakes all around. The dew point is the temperature at which the humidity in the air condenses. So, for example, if the relative humidity is about, say, 60% during the day, and the air molecules are all spread apart, and then at night the temperature drops to about 62. 62 is the point where there is no more room for humidity in the air because the air molecules came together. That is the dew point. It's the saturation point where the humidity in the air comes together and forms dew. So the dew point is the temperature at which, under the constant pressure, the dew will form. And humidity is a measure of how much moisture is in the atmosphere. That's the difference. Okay, let's go to Ty Lees. Ty wants to know, why are winters getting colder and summers getting hotter here in Central Florida? Big Arctic cold fronts, we normally get 1 or 2 per year here in Central Florida, and we had a very cold Christmas. So far, as I'm recording this on a Thursday afternoon, we've only had 2 nights below freezing in Central Florida this winter. One was Christmas Eve morning, and one was Christmas Day morning. Seems to me like we fell to 31 the morning of Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Eve night into Christmas morning when everyone was waking up Christmas morning. I think we officially dropped to 30 in Orlando, and those are only 2 days below freezing in Central Florida so far this winter. Winter is actually losing some of its chill across the United States of America. Between 1970 and 2021, 97% of the reporting stations in America saw a shrinking in the number of cold snaps. So winter's actually becoming a little less cold, or at least the cold snaps aren't lasting as long. On average, in America, cold snaps have dropped by 6 days. Might not sound like a lot to you, but that's almost a full week above where they used to be for cold days in wintertime. So all of a sudden you've lost a week of cold winter across the country in the last 50 years. If that trend continues, that starts to eat in on either side into your autumn and your spring, and all of a sudden it's just really warm. In Orlando proper, I know for sure that since 1950, our number of nights when we drop below 32 has decreased by about 3. So instead of having maybe 5 to 6 nights where we go below the freezing point, we've only, on average, in the last 50 years, had about 3. So far this winter, I've already told you we have had 2. We may or may not get another one when we actually go below freezing in the city of Orlando. Now, farther to the north in Gainesville, you've lost about, I want to say on average, 5 or 6 degrees below 32 in the last few years. But even farther south, like into Fort Myers, Naples, some of those areas down there have lost more than a dozen days when they go below 50. So our cold snaps are actually leaving us, and it's all because of overall global climate change and the warming of our environment over the last half of a century to 100 years. Really, mostly since the Industrial Revolution. We started putting more carbon in the air. We're gradually warming, and our cold stuff is kind of going away. So there you go. All right. Thank you for your questions. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom. Coming up after the break, more than 50% of hurricane victims qualify, but only a small portion are taking advantage of the benefits they deserve. Some putting themselves in dangerous positions just to help you make it through, and how you can get the help that you deserve. Coming up next. All right. Hello and welcome back to Talk to Tom. I'm Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells. Thank you for sticking with us through the break. It has been months since Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole rocked us here in Florida, but many people right here in Central Florida are still dealing with and feeling the impact. And officials with FEMA say many are simply not taking advantage of the help that is available. So we want to try to remedy that situation. Joining us now is Kim Fuller with the Office of External Affairs for FEMA. She's going to join us now and talk a little bit more about it. Hey, Kim, welcome to Talk to Tom. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Tom. I've been watching your show for the last 2 months, so I'm so happy to be here with you.
We're excited that you took the time out of your schedule to come here and try to help some people out. I know that's what you do at FEMA. But obviously, it's been a while. I mean, time flies, but it's been months now since we got rocked by those two hurricanes. And they're telling me that about 50% of the people with hurricane damage to their homes actually qualify for hotel benefits, but only a small portion are using those benefits. What's up with that?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if people are feeling like they just want to stay near their house and, protected and work on and just stay there. Some people are staying in their cars. Some people are staying in tents. Some are staying in the house. So what we're trying to do right now is let them know that if their situation has changed since we talked to them initially, please call us and please let us know if you have maybe mold growing in your home, you don't have electricity or utilities, because you may be eligible for our FEMA hotels program. Now, the time is running out for that. There's only 3 months left, but as the temperatures are getting colder, we would rather have them in a safe, secure, and sanitary location for the remainder of the time they're rebuilding.
So you mean people are actually choosing to live in like a moldy home?
Yeah, and they might not know that mold is dangerous for you, for health, especially if you have asthma, suppressed immune system. So I think people just feel closer in their environment where they live, and they don't want to move out of that area. So they can pick from over 200 hotels on our FEMA locator list, and they can see if there's a place that's close to their home that they can maybe just go at night, take a shower, sleep, and then go back to work on their home the next day.
Well, I have to tell you, I've lived here in Hurricane Alley for 23 years already, like a quarter of a century. I've been blessed to have never lost my home, but I had no idea that FEMA did that and had a hotel program. I've heard of, help to repair your home and blah, 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 but I didn't know that they had a hotel program. So in all the instances that you have, are you having trouble contacting the people who live in the homes?
Yeah, we're not really sure if they are not getting our electronic email or letters in the mail, because there's always a bunch of issues during time of disaster. It's a lot of places I know on the west side of the west coast of the state don't even have mail delivery yet. But they can always look at their application status on the FEMA app or the disasterassistance.gov website, or they can even go in person and see a smiling face at one of our disaster assistance centers. But whatever the case is, they could also be thinking that they're denied because they might have gotten the letter, looked at it, and saw in the first paragraph they're denied. But often denied does not mean denied forever. It means we might be waiting for a little bit of information. And sometimes that information is we're requesting that they fill out a small business administration loan. Well, they might not want a loan, so they don't fill it out. Well, guess what? If you're declined for the loan, you go back into the FEMA pool for possible funding. So don't stop the process. And by not filling out that form, you stop the process.
So you're saying be persistent.
You really do have to be persistent. You can, like I said, go face-to-face at a disaster recovery center. There's one right here in Orange County. You can call us up to 11 p.m. at night on the 800 number, or you can do it in the privacy of your own home right here on your phone by simply downloading the FEMA app or look at disasterassistance.gov.
They tell me that the FEMA workers have actually been going door to door trying to find applicants.
Yes, we have a division called the DSA, Disaster Services Administration, and they go door to door. Some of your reporters at your station have called me and told me about cases. And while we have to protect the survivors' privacy, the disaster survivor group can go out to the home and locate them. And sometimes we can't find them. They've been evicted from their property. Their cell phone no longer works, but they can call us. So if you have not heard from us and what you think is an ample amount of time, please call us back. You can call us as many times as you want, but we want to be able to give you the benefits that you have waiting for you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, Kim, everybody loves a success story. And I've been told that you actually reached an applicant recently that was owed $45,000. Tell us that story.
Well, I actually have to tell you, it was brought to our attention by one of your reporters.
Oh, really?
And yeah, he had been out at one of the areas near Ponciana. I always say the names of every city we go to wrong. So
Ponciana?
Yes, Ponciana.
Osceola County? Yeah.
And they had a woman had called him 5 times. And when we looked at the case, I couldn't really tell him what was going on with her. Mm-hmm. But I said, why don't you ask her to call us? So she called, and he's the one that told me that she had $45,000 waiting.
Wow. That's a huge amount of money when you're sitting there not knowing.
With that kind of money, she must have had a total loss. I don't even learn what the details are. But the thing is, I'm so glad she called you guys, because if she hadn't called you, she might have never known to be persistent, call us back. Yeah. There's no wait on the phones anymore. There's no waits in the Disaster Recovery Center anymore. You have people that will have their undivided attention take a look at your case and help you get it moving along.
All right, so obviously people can still apply for aid. Run it by us one more time. People can still apply, and how do they apply?
Okay, so remember, there's 2 disasters, and they would have had to apply twice. So they already have applied for Ian. That deadline has passed. But just because the deadline has passed does not mean we're not still working on their case. If they have applied, go in and make sure you have uploaded all the documents. You can still do that. That deadline, that has not passed for being completed. And you still can apply for Hurricane Nicole. And that's several counties over here on the east side of Florida. And you have until February 13th. And please come into one of our disaster recovery centers if you're having trouble with the application, because it is quite long. And they'll sit with you for an hour and help you finish it, and then tell you what you got to do next to be able to get the process, continue to move forward.
Okay, Kim, you yourself don't live here in Central Florida most of the time, correct?
Right.
Where are you from?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Okay, so you traded one Orange County for the other if you came from LA. So you're actually living in a hotel while you're working to help repair housing for people here in Florida.
Right. And you know what? Actually, I'm very lucky because I was able to find a very low government rate hotel. But, a lot of our FEMA employees do not stay in hotels. They're in a responder lodging, I guess it's really like a village, over on the west side of the state, so that the hotels that are available over there can be used for disaster survivors. Now, I lived in disaster lodging in Kentucky when I was there for the floods in the fall. Oh, wow. And I just decided, I'm going to love it. And I became the mayor of the village. You just got to really enjoy yourself wherever you are. And our rooms were literally the size of a 10 by 10 convention booth.
Wow. What town in Kentucky were you in?
I had several counties near Breathitt County, which is like Jackson and Hazard, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that was the worst hit area.
I remember very well. All right. Thank you so much. Kim Fuller from the Office of External Affairs for FEMA. Kim, thank you so much, for being here and helping Central Florida, and most especially for joining us on Talk to Tom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. We'll see you.
All right. We'll see you later. And thank you at home for watching Talk to Tom. If you have a question you'd like to have us answer, you can get it on here. Just go to clickorlando.com/talk to Tom and submit your question. I'd love to know what you want to know about. And you can catch us every Thursday right here on the powerful WKMG at 5:30, or stream us anytime on News 6 Plus.